The moment hung in the air between them, a question that seemed simple on the surface but carried the weight of dignity, respect, and an unexpected turning point in both their lives. Mark Stevens stood frozen, his newborn daughter's soiled diaper in one hand, wipes in the other, as his boss Catherine Mills waited for his answer. "Should I change here or look away?" she had asked, gesturing to the makeshift changing area Mark had set up in the corner of his office. His answer would change everything, not just for him as a struggling single dad, but for the entire company culture Catherine was trying to build. If you've ever faced a moment where a simple interaction completely altered your life's trajectory, stay with me through this incredible true story. And if this resonates with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to hear more stories that remind us how humanity can shine through in our workplaces and beyond. Mark hadn't planned on bringing 6-month-old Emma to work that Tuesday. His regular babysitter had called in sick with the flu at 6:30 that morning, and his mother, who usually served as backup, was visiting his sister 3 states away. As a senior project manager at Horizon Technologies with a major client presentation scheduled for 2 p.m., calling in sick himself wasn't an option. So he'd packed Emma's diaper bag with extra everything, grabbed her portable playpen, and arrived at the office an hour early to set up a temporary nursery in the corner of his office. "It'll just be for today," he'd promised his department secretary, who had cooed over Emma while helping him rearrange his furniture. "I've got bottles prepared, and she usually naps from 10 to noon. The presentation should be fine." For the first few hours his plan worked perfectly. Emma was on her best behavior, content to play with her toys in the playpen while Mark finalized his presentation slides. His coworkers stopped by throughout the morning, delighted by the unexpected visitor, offering to hold her while Mark used the restroom or grabbed coffee. By lunchtime, he was feeling confident that he might actually pull this off without disaster. Then Catherine Mills, the newly appointed CEO who had taken over the company just 3 weeks prior, requested an impromptu meeting to review the presentation before the clients arrived. Mark had only spoken with Catherine twice since her appointment, brief, professional interactions that gave little insight into her management style. The rumors around the office painted her as brilliant but demanding, with exacting standards and little patience for excuses. Mark quickly texted his team members, asking if anyone could watch Emma for 30 minutes while he met with Catherine. The responses came back rapidly. Everyone was either in lunch meetings or finishing their parts of the presentation. He was on his own. "Just bring her to my office," Catherine had written back when Mark explained his situation and offered to email the presentation instead. "I don't mind." Mark gathered his laptop, presentation notes, and a suddenly fussy Emma, making his way to the executive floor with a growing sense of dread. This was not how he had planned to make an impression on the new CEO. Catherine's office was spacious and surprisingly warm, with large windows overlooking the city and photographs of what appeared to be her family displayed prominently on her desk. She greeted Mark with a firm handshake and immediately smiled at Emma, who was squirming in Mark's arms. "She's beautiful," Catherine said, gesturing for Mark to take a seat. "How old?" 6 months next week, Mark replied, trying to settle Emma while opening his laptop. "I'm sorry about this. My childcare fell through this morning, and with the client meeting..." Catherine waved away his apology. "Life happens. I raised 3 kids while building my career. Sometimes the boundaries blur." She leaned forward, making a silly face at Emma, who momentarily stopped fussing to stare at this new person. "Let's review your presentation. We have about 20 minutes before she needs something?" Mark laughed, tension easing from his shoulders. "You've done this before." "More times than I can count," Catherine said, turning her attention to his laptop screen. They were 15 minutes into reviewing the presentation when Emma began to fuss in earnest. Mark recognized the signs immediately. The specific cry, the squirming, the slight redness in her cheeks. Diaper change needed urgently. "I'm sorry," he said, reaching for the diaper bag. "She needs a change. I can step out." "Nonsense," Catherine said. "We're almost done here. Just do what you need to do." Mark hesitated, then spread out the changing pad on the couch in Catherine's office. As he laid Emma down and began the changing process, Catherine stood up from her desk and approached. That was when she asked the question that would change everything. Should I change here or look away? Mark looked up at his boss, this powerful woman who ran a company of over 500 employees, who had a reputation for toughness and exacting standards. In that moment, he made a choice to be completely honest. Actually, he said, if you wouldn't mind, could you hand me that pack of wipes? An extra pair of hands always makes this go faster. Catherine smiled, picked up the wipes, and knelt beside the couch. My youngest is 12 now, but some skills you never forget. Want me to take over while you finish making those slide adjustments we discussed? Mark's surprise must have shown on his face because Catherine laughed. I'm a CEO, but I'm also a mother of 3. I've changed thousands of diapers, often while on conference calls or reviewing quarterly reports. As Catherine efficiently changed Emma's diaper, talking softly to the baby who had stopped crying and was now giggling at the attention, Mark felt something shift in his understanding of what professional life could be. You know, Catherine said as she secured the fresh diaper, when I took this position, I reviewed the company's family leave policies and childcare support programs. They're abysmal. Mark nodded cautiously. It's been challenging, especially since Emma's mother left. Catherine handed Emma back to Mark, her expression serious. Tell me about it. Not just your situation, though I'd like to hear that too, but what it's like trying to balance parenthood with your work here. For the next 15 minutes, Mark forgot about the presentation entirely. He told Catherine about becoming a single father when Emma was just 2 months old, after his wife decided she wasn't ready for motherhood and left them both. He described the constant juggling act, the guilt when work demanded late hours, the financial strain of quality childcare, and the fear that he was always one emergency away from professional failure. The hardest part, he admitted, is feeling like I have to pretend Emma doesn't exist during work hours. Like being a father is some secret identity I can't acknowledge here. Catherine was quiet for a moment, watching Emma, who had fallen asleep in Mark's arms. That ends today, she finally said. Not just for you, but for every parent at Horizon. 2 weeks later, Catherine called an all-company meeting with Mark and Emma beside her on the stage. Emma wearing a tiny future CEO onesie that Catherine had given her. She announced a complete overhaul of the company's family policies. We're installing a subsidized on-site daycare center that will be operational within 3 months, she announced to audible gasps from the audience. We're doubling parental leave for both mothers and fathers. We're implementing flexible work schedules and remote work options for parents of young children. And we're creating emergency childcare support for those inevitable days when regular arrangements fall through. She paused, looking out at the stunned faces of her employees. Some of you might wonder why these changes, why now? The answer is simple, because we've been asking our employees to be less than whole people. We've been pretending that the most important relationships in their lives don't affect their work, and that their work shouldn't accommodate those relationships. Catherine gestured to Mark and Emma. 2 weeks ago, this dedicated employee brought his daughter to work because he had no other options. He was prepared to apologize for it, to hide it if possible, because that's the culture we've created. When I asked if I should look away while he cared for his child, a basic human responsibility, his honest answer changed my perspective entirely. She smiled at Mark. He didn't ask me to look away from his reality as a parent. Instead, he invited me to help. That simple act of authenticity made me realize how much talent, dedication, and humanity we've been wasting by forcing employees to compartmentalize their lives. The changes Catherine implemented transformed Horizon Technologies. Within a year, employee retention improved by 65%. Productivity increased, not decreased, as employees no longer spent mental energy hiding their family obligations or rushing through work to handle childcare logistics. The company became known as a destination employer for talented professionals with families, giving them a competitive edge in recruitment. For Mark, the changes were even more profound. With reliable childcare just 1 floor down from his office, he could visit Emma during lunch breaks. The flexible schedule allowed him to be fully present for her doctor appointments and milestones without sacrificing his professional responsibilities. He was promoted to Director of Project Management 6 months later, with Catherine specifically citing his ability to build authentic relationships and create supportive team environments as key factors in her decision. But the most meaningful change came in an unexpected form. Melissa Chen, a new hire in the marketing department, who often dropped her son off at the company daycare the same time Mark dropped off Emma, became first a friend, and eventually more. Their shared experiences as single parents created an immediate bond, and their children became fast friends as well. 2 years after that fateful diaper change in Catherine's office, Mark and Melissa were married, with Catherine officiating the ceremony and Emma and Melissa's son Lucas serving as flower girl and ring bearer. At the wedding reception, Catherine raised her glass for a toast to Mark and Melissa, who remind us that our lives aren't meant to be divided into professional and personal compartments, and to Emma, whose dirty diaper led to a corporate revolution. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Later that evening, Mark found a moment alone with Catherine. "I never properly thanked you," he said, "not just for the policy changes, but for seeing me, really seeing me, as both a professional and a father that day." Catherine smiled. "You know what the irony is? I took this CEO position because the board wanted someone tough to streamline operations and cut costs. They expected me to eliminate unnecessary benefits and focus solely on the bottom line. Instead, you added benefits and increased operational costs," Mark said, "and doubled our profitability in 2 years." Catherine added, "Because I remembered something I'd forgotten in my climb up the corporate ladder. Companies aren't abstract entities. They're collections of human beings with full, complicated lives. When we acknowledge that reality instead of fighting against it, everyone wins." As Mark watched Emma dancing with her new stepbrother, both of them laughing as Melissa tried to teach them a simple waltz, he felt a sense of wholeness that had once seemed impossible. His professional life and personal life weren't in conflict anymore, they existed in harmony, each enriching the other. All because, in a moment of vulnerability when his boss asked if she should change here or look away, he had chosen authenticity over pretense. He had invited her into his reality rather than hiding it, and that simple choice had changed everything, not just for him and Emma, but for hundreds of families who would never know the struggle of feeling torn between their most important roles. So if you're facing a moment where you must choose between hiding your reality or embracing it authentically, remember Mark's story. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be honest about who you are and what you need. You never know how far those ripples of authenticity might spread, or whose life they might change along the way. If this story touched you or reminded you of your own experiences balancing work and family, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the full, complex beauty of human lives. Because in a world that often asks us to compartmentalize ourselves, these reminders of our shared humanity are more important than ever.